What's good, y'all? Back on the Justin Henry Show. It's been a couple days, been a week since my guy Dalton has been back on the show, but here he is, live in effect. And Dalton, we ain't do too bad last week, bro. If you was
Redemption
rocking with
season was
us,
good, man. It was good to us. So now we just got to keep the ball rolling a little bit, keep it going, stay hot, and
we're gonna
let's
stay
go.
hot.
Yeah,
We're gonna stay hot for sure. And yes, it's the Justin Henry Show. We're gonna be talking about player props from the NFC and AFC championship games this week. Try to get you guys some money, get you guys whatever you need odds wise. If you have some player props you want to run by us, let us know. We're gonna go through game by game like we typically do. But you guys know what it is. It's the Justin Henry Show, baby. Let's get. You're watching the Justin Henry Show on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Make sure you follow on all social media platforms. What is up? Back on again on the show, Justin Henry Show. We're gonna be talking player props. Y'all may notice I got this Bengals hat on today. I lost a bet, man. I was talking those
okay.
Bills up last week, and in the comments, one of the guys called me out and said, "You know what? You got the Bills double-digit win. I don't see it happening." I was like, "You know what? Bills are gonna win by double digits. If they don't win, I'll wear the Bengals hat live on stream, even though it's Niners week and we about to go beat these Eagles. I still had to come on and wear the B, man, just because I made a promise. So I had to deliver on that promise, Dalton.
I love it. And you still have the Niners in the background just to kind of hedge a little bit over there.
You know, they
Keep,
know what it
keep,
is. That
yeah.
doesn't move. The Niners stuff don't move. You can't move that, man. But let's go over these picks, man. Obviously, we had I would say it's a pretty good week last week overall. I know I missed on a couple like ones that I was really certain on, but overall, we did pretty well calling these games out. The Mahomes injury, man, did cause a little bit of a shift in that game specifically. The Bills, I was a big miss on the Bills and their inability to move the ball offensively, but we got two games this week: San Francisco, Philly, and Kansas City in Cincinnati. Let's start in the NFC with my squad, the Niners, even though I got the Bengals hat on. Still the squad, baby. San Francisco 49ers going into Philly, Dalton, against the best offense in the league. This is the best defense in the league. How do you think Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy do this week, man?
I think they might underwhelm a bit just because of the matchup at hand. When you have two really good defenses facing each other, especially in the passing game, like Eagles passing game is the best in the league. And we're going against Brock Purdy. And we saw last week Brock Purdy faced his first like top 12 pass defense that he had at some time. No passing touchdowns. He didn't necessarily play bad, but like he didn't have the same impact on the game than he had previously throughout all the rest of the Niners wins throughout there. So I think we're going to
Yeah.
see a similar type of scenario offensively for the Niners in this game. I think they're going to run the ball a little bit, a little more. And I think for Jalen Hurts, passing wise, like the Niners are really good at like a lot of like short intermediate
Yeah,
defense, like over
100%.
the top defense. Like they're not exactly the best at that. So I think the Eagles could look for like either like Quez Watkins splash play, obviously like AJ Brown deep balls, like those are ways, and I think that Hurts could do well. And against like the run too, like Hurts running the ball a little bit, I think is a unique avenue because I mean to be completely honest, the Niners run D is so good that we just like the Eagles are smart enough, and we've seen it when they play top rush defenses, they just kind of stray away from the run. And they did focus on passing a little bit. So I think like Jalen Hurts rushing the ball and him passing it is going to be like the major focal point of the offense for the Eagles this week.
I'm there with you. I'm there with you. Both these teams are gonna have to try to focus on the run game, but I feel like the Eagles are gonna have to take more shots than they have all year.
Mm-hmm.
The Niners defense is a bend don't break off defense. They play that way. They let you get the small plays, which kind of feeds into Philly's offense. But Philly also needs those big plays, those chunk plays where AJ Brown's breaking a tackle and taking it 80 yards. Devontae Smith is breaking a tackle and going. So a lot these offenses both are predicated on yak and run after the catch. And you know, when I look at this Philly defense, there's holes in the middle. Like that's the softest part of this defense. I'm not saying it's easy to run the ball on these guys, but if you're gonna do anything against this Philly defense, you got to run the ball. When it comes to the Niners, though, they're pretty stout against the run, up the middle at least. So I could see like a slower day from Miles Sanders, and we'll get into these player props in a second. But when you talked about it, man, the passing attacks for both these guys, Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy. I think both of their numbers are a little high. Jalen Hurts sitting at around 246.5, Brock Purdy sitting at 219.5. I think those are high numbers for both of these guys in a game that will be dependent on a big play. If they can get a big play, they might pass those numbers. I think there's more likelihood of Jalen Hurts passing that number than Brock Purdy passing his. So if I was going to take one of these, I would go Brock Purdy under, and I also like the under on his attempts. 31.5. He's only hit that in 2 games out of all his starts, and that was against the Raiders and the Dolphins, who have very, very terrible secondaries.
100%. I think that's an interesting angle. I might like the yards a little more because we have to think about this. Brock Purdy has not lost a game as a 49ers quarterback. And there's a legitimate chance that the 49ers lose this game. And in that scenario, they're probably going to be from behind and forced to throw the ball more. I don't know necessarily like how good he's going to do in those scenarios, but I think like that's a scenario that we haven't seen yet out of Brock Purdy and the 49ers yet. What is it? What, 9-10 games that I think it's like what this would be the 9th game. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. But it's like, I mean, that's also what makes the Niners so good is they've kept these leads, and that's what should keep them in this game for the most part.
Got to get out to a lead. I think that's the thing. We saw Brock Purdy last week against the Cowboys, and he looked much better when he wasn't throwing the ball as much or having to make those tight throws. But that's going to depend a lot on the run game too. So when I look at the run game for the Niners, obviously Christian McCaffrey a little bit banged up last week. We saw Debo get slightly involved in the run game. Eli Mitchell, your boy, putting in work. What are your thoughts on this rushing game for the Niners this week?
This is like the clear weakness and like the clear like mismatch for the Niners here is the Eagles are 21st in rush D on the year, which is not, I mean, like they're like average in EPA per play on defense, like on rush D. So it's like, yes, that's not like exactly an easy or like a massive weakness of the Eagles, but it's something that like when you're looking at their first ranked passing defense, like you definitely want to focus on running the ball more. Elijah Mitchell did not practice all week. And like Shanahan said early on in the week that he was going to go ahead and play. Him and McCaffrey are going to play, but then McCaffrey practiced today, but Elijah Mitchell didn't. So now we have to be like, is Elijah Mitchell even playing? Like I genuinely think there's a much better chance that Elijah doesn't play than he does play. And like that means so much for Christian McCaffrey. Like, dude, if you look at McCaffrey with and without Elijah Mitchell, like let's just like not take the first game that McCaffrey played because he played what like freaking like 10, 11 snaps in his first game or whatever it was. But dude, he's averaged 7 more rush attempts per game with Elijah Mitchell there. He's averaged like 42 more rushing yards per game, like against him. Like his rushing usage, he's on the field for 15% more snaps. He actually gets the usage, and it's mainly because they really don't have another guy there. And I think it's not because they don't like Christian McCaffrey. I think they liked Elijah Mitchell so much and think he's so good that he, got carries with McCaffrey there. And it's not like Jordan Mason's going to come in and get those carries. I think like there's a legitimate argument that Debo's the one that could do that because like that could be like an angle there. But I still think McCaffrey, like even if he's banged up, like you're Christian McCaffrey, you are on the Panthers your entire career. You have like legitimately never been good. You've never been in a scenario before. Like, yes, you might be banged up, but you're putting it all on the line. You're not gonna be limited. You're not doing that. Like you're literally putting your body on the line. This is what you worked your entire career for to be in this scenario. Like McCaffrey's gonna play. He's gonna play snaps. He might be banged up. It might limit him a little bit efficiency wise, but like.
Well, Dalton, you mentioned one thing. You mentioned Debo Samuel and his rushing yards. To me, that's the angle. With this secondary for the Eagles and the way that they're able also to generate pass rush pressure. For me, Debo is the play. I think they're going to use him a lot in the run game. And just because of the fact that Eli Mitchell is either going to be limited or not play this game, McCaffrey is a little bit banged up this game as well. I see Debo going in there and getting probably the most attempts he's had in a while since he's come back from his injury, especially if they struggle to get the passing game going.
I think it's fair too. I think like if you're the Niners, you want to get your best players involved, and Debo is absolutely one of your best players. And you know that there might be issues in terms of getting him involved in the passing game because of how good the Eagles are. Why not, give him the rock while he's running the ball, put him in the backfield, do like little like screens to him, like basically just like utilize him that way. It like feels like that's a very likely scenario in which Shanahan's using, especially considering all the injuries right now to the running backs.
All right, so let's build a parlay. Let's build a little parlay out of this these championship games. All right, so for the first one with passers, did we decide on Purdy under? We're both on Purdy's under.
I'm down for some Purdy under on that.
Purdy under or Hurts. Jalen Hurts under.
One thing I like doing with these is like correlating them. So if I'm having like Purdy's under, we could take like McCaffrey's over or something like that. So it's like they're basically just like correlated with each other. And then we can take like another side of a different game or whatever.
Purdy's all the way down to 215.5. Jalen Hurts is all the way down to 242.5. I think everybody's kind of already starting to get there with these passing unders. So if we rock with Purdy's, then I'm okay with rocking with McCaffrey's over. So let's do McCaffrey's over on the rushing yards. I like that.
Yeah. Actually, what are McCaffrey's attempts at? Because I might like that a little bit more.
Attempts they were at 13.5 earlier in the week. Let's see what they're at now. Oh, they took him off the board. That Eli Mitchell. Yeah, they were at 13.5 earlier in the week. So
that was a banger.
I don't mind the yards though, 56.5.
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten 14 or more carries in every single one of those games without Elijah Mitchell. He's averaging 18. Like you mentioned, he's averaging 92 rushing yards per game in those games without Elijah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty likely he's just going to see enough volume for it. And if he's like legitimately banged up, like that's somewhat of a concern. But I mean, he should have the volume and hopefully the game script. Unless the Niners are down like 2 touchdowns, then flip. But
a little telling sign here for me about this rushing total is whenever you see things like this, like the books, and they put it at 120.5, and McCaffrey's sitting at 56, Miles Sanders is sitting at 51, but it has their total yards at 120. That lets you know they're preparing for one of these guys to go over their yards. And I'm not betting on it being Miles Sanders.
No, that's tough.
Give me a Christian McCaffrey love. All right, and then Debo too. Do you like the Debo rushing, or are we staying away from that for now?
I'm about it. Honestly, like it was an angle I thought of a little bit, but I looked at like how he did without Elijah and like with McCaffrey, and it's just like Debo was basically injured the entire time. That McCaffrey was there for the most part for a little bit, and then Elijah Mitchell was also playing. So it's like really hard to kind of gather how it's a lot of projection there, and I think I'm definitely like into the idea of that. So I mean, it's probably something that I'm going to end up playing.
I bet.
I think you sold me on it, man. I mean, it makes sense. Like
that's my job, you know. I mean, we got to go through and talk it out so we can get these picks right, baby. All right, on to the receivers, man. Before we get to the next game, we'll get to receivers and the tight ends here in the receiving game. When it comes to the Niners side of the ball, obviously we're looking at the guys. You know, the running backs have their plays. I'm not really interested in Christian McCaffrey or Miles Sanders, but Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel against his secondary for the Eagles are going to struggle. Like they're an elite secondary for a reason. Their yardage totals are sitting way low, and we haven't seen Ayuk really have a really good game here in a while. He's hit this number in 4 out of his last 5. But to me, I'm still slightly concerned. Are you buying a Brandon Ayuk game where he actually goes out there and produces against this Eagles secondary?
Not necessarily. I want to take whoever's going to be in the slot more against them. Like we saw the outside corners for the Eagles are just so good. We saw Richie James last week have a lot more success, and he was lining up in the slot like 85-90% of the time. So Ayuk doesn't get as many of those looks as I'd like. For me, like it's one of those things where even though it's lower, like it's probably lower for a reason. I don't know, man, dude. Darius Slay's the Eagles secondary is nasty. So it's
Bradbury, really CJ Gardner-Johnson, like Slay. It's tough. Plus, they got the pass rush to match too. Like,
yo. Speaking of this, what's your like nervousness level? Like, I know last week you were nervous as a Niners fan against Cowboys. Are you more nervous this week? Are you like, how are you feeling about it?
So here's where I'm at. Last week, I was nervous because of the upside for the Cowboys. If everything went right, I was like, all right, Cowboys have a chance to win. Normally, as a Niner fan, I go in, I'm like, oh, we beat Dallas every year. I don't care about. But I was nervous to the fact that like if they played a clean game like they did against Tampa, it would have been trouble. And we saw that. Like those 2 turnovers were really the difference in the game for Dallas. Now, this game is a little bit more problematic because the defense is there and this team doesn't make mistakes.
Yep.
This Eagles team does not make mistakes, and I think that's the silent killer. There's a reason they're number 1 offense. They can beat you so many different ways. If I had a meter, 1 to 10 meter, last week I was concerned like a 7 against the Cowboys. It's like a nine and a
Okay,
half this
okay,
week against the
okay.
Eagles. I really think the Eagles have a unless Brock Purdy plays the cleanest game of his life,
Hmm.
he throws over to this number 215 what it's at. He has to throw more than that. No turnovers at all.
No
The
turnovers.
Niners have a chance. Niners
That's
will win. The Niners will win if Brock Purdy plays a clean game, doesn't turn the rock over, and he's able to throw the football.
I think
If
that's
that doesn't happen, it's a loss.
Yeah, man, dude. I mean, I feel like without last week and those turnovers that the Niners, created, dude, they would have been in some serious trouble.
Yeah.
And like it just felt like every single time they had a good drive, but like it was like third down and like whatever the third down scenario was, they just weren't able to get over that hump, and they were kicking field goals instead. And like it just felt like Dallas was always one play away, but then you get
One
another
play.
pick, you get another pick. It was just like that was a sweaty one. So I mean, it's
I
tough.
hate talking about it, but it's real. It's
Yeah,
real. Like
man. Yeah, that's what
Cowboys full
we're
of
talking through.
shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm curious your thoughts on some of these like wide receivers. For me, like I'm just kind of like I haven't like put a lot of thought in it just because I think like the defense on these games are good and they've kind of adjusted the lines based on that. But if you have like
Yeah.
any strong things, I'm kind of curious your
You,
takes on that.
I'm kind of staying away from Debo.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think he'll be used a lot in the running game too. But
Hmm.
he's the player for me. If I was going to take an over out of him and Ayuk, it'd be Debo because they're going
Okay.
to use him in multiple ways. I think they'll
Hmm.
use him out the backfield sometimes, get him some quick action, some
Hmm.
screen plays. Ayuk is more like, hey, it's third down. We need a hitch, or we need something a quick out. Like that's more Brandon Ayuk style. Get open on third down or in clutch situations. Where I think Debo will be used more versatilely. And then
Hmm.
AJ Brown, to me, I like AJ Brown a lot, and this Niners defense doesn't really give up the big play. You're essentially, if you're taking over under on AJ Brown for me, which is a stay away this week at 70 yards. If you're taking him, you're saying, is he going to get the big play or not? That's
Hmm.
what this line indicates. He's going to get 6 to 7 catches. Is he going to get the big play, the 30-yard, 40-yard play that we're accustomed to seeing AJ Brown get all season long? I have my doubts against it, but that could be the bias talking, so I'm staying away.
Hmm. I'm a big AJ Brown fan, so I always want to believe in him. But dude, straight up, like Devontae Smith has actually gotten more targets since week one than him. Like, dude, they're a dynamic duo, and AJ Brown definitely has like that more like splash, potential play. He's probably the better receiver out of those two. But like, if you focus on one, like the other one's gonna cook you, man, and
Yeah.
it's dangerous, man. And
These
then you
two
got
teams are so similar, bro.
it really is. That's one thing I've noticed, and I think like when it comes down to it, like you have both of them have like really good wide receiver core, have a good tight end, running back like favors the Niners. Offensive line's amazing, but now
Yeah.
you got like one quarterback can run the ball, and one of them, man. Brock Purdy's a little athletic, but like he's just like not on that same level as a Jalen.
Imagine if it was like Trey Lance in there and he was throwing like Brock Purdy's been throwing. We'd be talking about this as like damn near mirror images of each other,
Yeah,
bro.
dude.
These teams.
Dude, that's a full nother conversation, man. Because I think this offseason is going to be very interesting of what happens there. But
A lot rides on this game.
it does. You're right. Because if he goes to the Super Bowl, like,
It's no question.
yeah, right? Like,
Purdy's a starter, yeah.
yeah.
So, oh man, what about tight ends, man? George Kittle has been playing an increased role with Brock Purdy. 45 and a half yards seems about right for him. Probably could go over that with the pass rush there. I think I would take the over for George Kittle. Dallas Goedert number seems about right. It's probably more of a stay away spot in my opinion. The Niners are really good against the tight end. Either of those tight ends you like as a play this week, either over or under?
Not necessarily. Again, just my thoughts overall are just pretty similar across the board. I think Juwan Jennings would have been interesting if his line were a little lower because he runs the most slot snaps out of the Niners and that stays away from some of their outside corners. But dude, 20 and a half, man, for
That's
a guy
high
like
for him.
this, yeah, I mean, I remember his line back, early on a few weeks ago, it was down to 13 and a half. But now it's like the man's going to get like 2 big plays now instead of
Yeah.
1, so.
It's crazy. He's hit that number. He's damn near hit that number, and he's out of 3 of the 5 games and right at the number 20
Yeah, right.
in that other game there, which is crazy to see.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we'll move on from this game, man. That's obviously Niners and Philly. That's going to be a good game. Who do you think wins overall? Give me your score prediction.
27-23 Philly. Actually, no, let me change that. 24-21 Philly. I think the game might Yeah, might sneak around there.
So if I have my biased Niner fan hat on, 27-17 Niners. I take that. I take that hat off, and
Dude.
I do a prediction: 23-20 Eagles.
Well, okay. All right.
I don't like it. I don't
I
like
don't
it
like
at
it either,
all.
man. I do think, like we mentioned it, like comparing these teams, they're so equal. The difference is Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy is like one of them can run the ball, and that's an actual like massive component to the game. And dude, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got to talk about it. We got to move on, man.
Yep.
Cincinnati, Kansas City. This
Mhm.
all hinges on Pat Mahomes' ankle. That's it. His ankle, and obviously he's off the injury report this week. This line, have you seen this line movement this week for this game? It's been crazy, bro. So the Chiefs opened up as 1-point favorites.
Yep.
It went all the way to 2.5, 3 in some books for the Bengals. A lot of that 3 was like the key number for a lot of people. But 2.5 in most books. And then since then has come all the way back to where the Chiefs are favored again, bro. What do you think of this line movement?
I think a lot of it is just uncertainty about Mahomes' health. Like it was actually one of the most mind-boggling things to me when the line opened at Chiefs -1. I was actually shocked at that line because I thought the Chiefs would be like 3 or 3.5 point favorites, right? And I was like, okay, like that's clearly like Mahomes' injury there. So I like put something out on Twitter, and I was like, dang, I can't believe like I expected it to be like -3 Chiefs. And then I look like a freaking idiot because the freaking line starts moving the other way, and I'm just like is Mahomes like this? Like Mahomes might not be playing.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yo, like what is going on? Like the Bengals were just 6 points underdogs in freaking Buffalo
Yes.
against the Bills, and like the Chiefs are home here, and like yes, I get Mahomes is hurt, but like he's the freaking MVP, and
But it's
I was like,
3-0. They're 3-0 again. So Joe Burrow's never
I was like,
lost.
the Bengals like finally getting respect. I was like, why would it take the Bengals going to the Super Bowl last year, like crushing at the end of the game, like the end of the season, like, and now suddenly everybody respects him.
It makes no sense.
So I was like, what the heck's going on? Mahomes practice starts going out. He's looked good. Foley practices there. Like there's videos of him like jumping off the freaking stairs
jogging in practice
at the
too.
press conference, right? And he's like doing like circles. Like all the injury doctors are out there saying that, but it's like, dude, like even like 80-85%, like no one's expecting to be 100%. But like I think we were just hoping we didn't like see a hobbled Mahomes because he didn't look good at the end of last week. But
yeah,
like, apparently like it was not as bad as we thought. Like the swelling apparently is like not there, and like I think the line's still gonna actually move like closer. I don't know if it's gonna hit 3, but like
it'll get up to like 2.5. I can see that. I can see 2.5, and you know what? I think people obviously overreacted to. The public did. The public hammered the Bengals. Hammered the Bengals, and I think a lot of people forget. Like you have a week, you had 8 days, and that's not just like rest to get your ankle right. That's also 8 days for Andy Reid to gauge. Mahomes, where are you at? What throws can you make? And with a genius like Andy Reid, who can script the game with the best of them ever in history, whether it's with the run game, it's getting Mahomes in favorable spots. How much can we use your ankle? Can we use you on sprint rollouts? Do you need a handball off? Can we use you in stretch plays? Like, there's a lot of questions. Can we have anybody else take handoffs under center? Like, you got Travis Kelce that knows how to take snaps. You got, some of the running backs know how to take snaps. Kadarius Toney knows how to take snaps. There's a lot of options for this Kansas City Chiefs team, and it's like I think we undervalue what Andy Reid can do. So when I look at this game, man, I look at obviously it's the quarterbacks. Pat Mahomes has struggled to hit 250 against his Bengals team, and since Burrow's been there, Burrow has had phenomenal games against the Chiefs, and the numbers indicate that as well. Do you think that continues?
Since I think the Chiefs are going to win, again, I want the Bengals to win. I want the Niners to win. I don't think either of those things are going to happen. Dude, one thing about the Bengals, and I think this is why Mahomes had bad games because they've lost those 3 games and they were up in all 3 of them heading into like the fourth quarter, and then they got a little bit run heavy. Burrow did his magic and comes back in the fourth quarter. But like it was very easy in every single one of those games that they played each other that the Chiefs would have won, and they should have won all 3 of those, to be completely honest. So for me, like the way I'm approaching this is I think Burrow, I don't have a full take on Burrow. I mean, like Chase has had good games against like his 261-yard game last year was against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
He scored a touchdown last year against them in the playoffs. He scored a touchdown against them this year in the regular season. I think one thing I've looked at when it comes to Burrow, and he how T. Higgins does correlates a lot to how Joe Burrow does. So I was looking at their past 7 games, right? And T. Higgins has been under 40 yards in 6 of those 7 games. And Joe Burrow has been under 245 passing yards in those 6 of 7 games. And the one game that Higgins had 128 yards, Burrow had what was it, 375 or something. So Burrow's passing yards, Chase is going to get his. He's going to get involved. We know that's going to happen. But also, T. Higgins is an extremely talented player, and there's been some missed plays here and there, the Ravens game at the week 18. He missed T. Higgins wide open. There's another deep play. So these numbers are partially skewed just by some bad luck. But
right.
Last year in the playoffs, T. Higgins was the guy balling out. We saw him have 96 yards the last 3 games. So I think T. Higgins is going to have a bounce back game, and that's naturally going to correlate. Joe Burrow is going to do well in those scenarios. So I think this will be a higher passing game than we might think, especially for Burrow. I know Mixon had a good game, but dude, I think the Bengals are very aware, and we've seen it. When they started going on this winning streak this year, it's been because they passed the ball so much. So I think that'd be a heavy component of how
they've let Burrow let it sling it.
Yeah.
At times against the Chiefs. And it's Mahomes, we've seen him. This Bengals defense has been tough though, man. They've been since they've gone on this streak, this Bengals defense has been one of the top units in football. I think a lot of us have discredited what they've done. And when I look at Mahomes' number, dealing with the ankle injury and the fact that in his games against the Bengals, he only averaged 250 yards versus Joe Burrow, which is an insanely low number for a guy like Mahomes. I feel like this 274 with all things considered is a little high. A lot of high, actually.
You know what's actually crazy is I think this is what's interesting when it comes to prize picks and using that when it comes to other sports books and just looking at other lines, right?
Yes.
There's a lot more line movement on these other sites where you can look at a FanDuel or DraftKings and be okay, well, Mahomes' line was at 273, but it got bet all the way up, and we're now it's 285. It's at 285.5 right now. So it's
wow.
And I think it's just all based off of his injury. So for me, I do agree with you. I tend to lean under if he was fully healthy, what is his line at 290?
Maybe.
Yeah, right.
Maybe,
around there, and it's so. Not only do you have a scenario in which he could go under it regardless, and he has not played against the Bengals well because they have a good defense. You also have a scenario where it's he's now potentially hobbled and he didn't look good off the injury. So you have that out too, where it's maybe he's not fully healthy, and he can still do a lot of things that make him Patrick Mahomes, but he's still not the same Patrick Mahomes. And they can still win that way too. And I think he can still win, and they can still do well without him hitting that number. So, I tend to agree with you on that. I think it's a little bit high, but I think they're just naturally giving Mahomes respect, which he obviously deserves.
Yeah, on FanDuel right now, the number is 285.5. And when Mahomes was dealing with his injury earlier in the week and they were talking about it, speculating, his number was all the way down to 261 on some books. So,
crazy, right?
Yeah, I can't tell right now. I think the number has been adjusted, but it seems almost like an overreaction to the fact that he's not on the injury report for this week. So good call on that, Dalton. And then for Burrow, I know we talked about him as well. You mentioned a lot correlates with the receiving game, but what about the running game, man? Do you think that Joe Mixon can get involved this week? We've talked a little bit about the importance of the running game in the NFC championship. This AFC championship, it's going to matter too, because the Chiefs are, they got to protect Mahomes with the running game. But then I think the running game also has to be prevalent for this Bengals team to move the ball through the air the right way. You think Joe Mixon gets involved?
I think he does, but I think it's gonna be game script dependent. So I think if you genuinely believe the Bengals are gonna win, you would probably want to take his over, because dude, they were crushing the Bills and Mixon had one of his best games. But we also look at Mixon in the past this year, and he's really not been good. Like straight up, he's not been good. He's not been that efficient. Yeah. And they also haven't utilized him much either, just because of how pass heavy they've been. So we're getting an inflated line. Like last week, his line opened at 51.5. It got bet down. It was at 47.5. And he finished with, off the top of my head, I don't remember, it's 90 something yards. So like now this is naturally getting moved up. Naturally, the Chiefs like run defense is not the best, so he can definitely like make things happen. I think the question for Mixon is just a pure volume thing. Are they going to rely on him more? I don't think so. I would like to think the Bengals are very well aware that their success has come through the passing game, and they're going to focus on that. And we've seen Samaje Perine actually get involved a lot more now because he's been like the third down. Like he ran just as many routes as Mixon. Like he's being
He had a
utilized.
hell of a game when Mixon was out. He had a hell of a game against his Chiefs team.
So for me, it's more of a stay away. And I think with these playoff lines too, is because there's only 2 games, these lines are going to tend to be like sharper just because there's not a lot of focus. And if like one of the lines is bad, people are going to hit that. It's going to move. So for me, like when it comes to this, unless I feel very strongly about it, I'm just tending to stay away. And that's kind of my general feeling with Mixon on there. If anything, I'm naturally just going to lean under, but again, it's not the greatest run defense.
And I'm gonna go the exact same kind of feel. It's a feel game, right? You have to kind of feel how you feel the teams are gonna to play, and that's where I go with this Kansas City Chiefs team. I look at Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon, and I think Pacheco's going to get some work this game. They've been kind of riding him as the guy between the 20s. And with Mahomes' injury, we're talking about, they could potentially be scheming different things. I think Pacheco's a big reason that this team will run the ball a lot more. And even with Clyde Edwards-Helaire back, I don't even know, did he even get playing time last week? No, it wasn't much if he did. I didn't see him on the
field. I think he ended up not playing this last week, and I think he's trending towards he's like so borderline. Like I don't know if he's gonna play this week, but
yeah, again, I don't see any. There's no props on him. No, I haven't seen the latest on him if he's playing or not. So, but with McKinnon, he's so involved in the passing game. I am looking at Pacheco here, and I think he can hit this number. He had almost 100 yards last week against in the game last week, and so for me, I'm looking at Pacheco as a guy that they're riding over the second half of this season, and that he will hit his rushing total. Give me Pacheco over 47.5 yards.
Okay, I'm actually gonna go to the other running back there and take the over on McKinnon. I really like McKinnon, man. And looking at last week, yes, he was utilized to pass protect a lot, and they were mentioning it on the broadcast, and they kind of needed that extra, man in there, just to keep Mahomes just upright. Like they did. Mahomes is not getting touched. They do not want him to get touched in this scenario. But he did see the most, his highest snap share he saw all year. He played 65% of snaps. He saw 11 carries. And then, so that made me curious. I'm like, oh, that's kind of crazy. But then I was like, last year in the playoffs, like they kind of utilized him quite a bit. So I looked at his snap shares last year in the regular season versus the playoffs. Jerick McKinnon did not have one game in the regular season in which he saw more than 31% of the snaps. In the playoffs, he did not have one game in the playoffs under 71% of the snaps. So his 4 highest percent snap shares in the last 2 years have all come in the playoffs. And he's seen 10 or more rushing attempts in all 4 of those games. Like,
only thing is they were banged up though, especially in last year's run.
Yeah.
They were super banged. He was the lead guy last year.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like he became the guy. I think Clyde was a little banged up as well, but they just rode McKinnon, and he's kind of been that dependable guy for them just because of his pass protection. They know they can trust him. We've seen at the end of this year too with how much they utilized him. Pacheco's like obviously Pacheco's almost like in the McKinnon role. Like when Pacheco's on the field, I wouldn't say it's always going to be a run play, but like they're utilizing him as a runner. They're not really utilizing him as a receiver. They're kind of like somewhat tipping their hand in a sense when Pacheco's on there. Whereas McKinnon is out there, like it could be a run. It's most likely a pass, but like McKinnon still gets that work in the running game where I think McKinnon, especially with the banged up Mahomes, utilizing him a lot more and having that extra out of like a short pass or like the pass rush is coming, like let me just dump it off real quick. Right. I think that's going to be an extra element to the game that might be enhanced a little bit more just because of that injury. Plus, like, I mean, just the Chiefs in of himself, if we look at that, once Mahomes got hurt last week, they ran the ball on 50% of their plays, which is like crazy for the Chiefs because they're throwing the ball like nearly almost like 70% of the time, right? So
that's a good call on those numbers because that's what I was talking about. I really genuinely think that Andy Reid is going to dial up a very heavy run approach for this team.
Yeah, I think more than normal we're going to see a run heavier approach because you have to ask yourself too, like Mahomes could be healthy, but when he's sitting back there and he's actually dropping on it, it's his right leg. He's dropping back as a quarterback. You're sitting there. All your weight is on your back leg.
Yeah,
So
that
how
plant
much
foot.
on those deep plays? So how is he able to throw the deep ball as well? I mean, and then also that, but like the mobility of like scrambling and whatnot. Like, yes, he can probably do that, but like, is it the same at Holmes? And are they going to limit that in the game plan? Like, Andy Reid
Yeah.
is one of the smartest coach out there. Is he going to limit that aspect of the game and just kind of focus on, okay, here's what we know Mahomes is capable of and what he can do, and let's just tailor our entire game plan about getting creative in those specific ways. And I think in those ways, like it definitely helps out McKinnon.
I think it helps out McKinnon. I think it helps out Pacheco. You talked about it. And you mentioned when Pacheco's been on the field, he hasn't really been used in the receiving game, whether it's to block, whether it's to actually receive. I kind of like him in this spot, though. 6.5 yards is a low number for me. And I think that they get him involved in the passing game. This is just an area where this team is going to have to utilize weapons that they typically don't if Mahomes is limited in any fashion. We don't know that he is, but my assumption is that if it's really a high ankle sprain, even though there's no injury designation, it's going to affect him in his ability to pass deep. So I kind of like the over for Pacheco on his receiving yards, as I do Jerick McKinnon as well. I think both of those plays are good plays, and I like McKinnon a little bit more in the passing game than I do in the run game personally, but I 100% hear your take, and I think it's a valid point. The one player, Dalton, that I've seen a lot of people talking about this week, Shamaji P. Ryan.
Yeah,
Everybody is
everybody's
on
talking.
this one. And it kind of gets me concerned, right? If you go on other books, I've seen it 17 and a half, 16 and a half. On here on PrizePicks, it's only at 13 and a half. Now, P. Ryan was also used, like I said, it was also used in a form when Joe Mixon was hurt, right?
Yeah.
We saw his production was increased. Do you think he can have that same impact this week against the Chiefs?
I think he can, and it's mainly because he's getting utilized in the receiving game. Like he's running a lot of routes, and that's the most important thing. Like when you're running routes, you have the opportunity to get targeted. And one thing we've seen a lot, and this might be something that the Chiefs do focus on, is we saw it a lot just this year as like defenses adjusted to the Bengals. They're doing a lot more cover two. They don't want to get beat deep. And what does that mean? That means there's a lot like little over the middle dump passes. Samaje Perine, Hayden Hurst, like those guys are getting more work like in the middle, in the short areas of the field. Like they're allowing that to happen because they don't want to get beat deep. And you know, teams have generally done a good job of it. Like we haven't seen Chase. Like Chase obviously has that explosive playability, but we haven't seen that same type of explosion from Chase this year because they've done that. So that, I mean, we've seen Perine do that. Like he ran the routes last week. And in a playoff game, I think that's very telling that like that should translate into this game, especially in a game where they were up 17 points. So like now what happens if you're down against the Chiefs and you're in more pass heavy situations, and especially on third down, like it looks like Perine is that guy over Mixon. And so I think it's a good play.
All right, let's run it. Let's get to the receivers, my man. Let's get to these receivers. Guys, if you're in here in the chat too and you want to hang out, ask some questions about these picks, or you want to drop your thoughts, go ahead and do so. The receivers for this game, you just talked about Jamar Chase. We talked about the importance of T. Higgins there too. If you had to, your gut was to go with the over on one of them, do you think T. Higgins has that game you're looking for, or do you think he's going to stay under there? Like, talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on T. Higgins and his impact this game against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also partially biased just because T is my boy. I got his jersey, man. Been riding him out of Clemson, but
he's a dog, bro. He's fun to watch.
He's so good, man. He's so good, and he's so good. And I think the thing that makes me intrigued about Higgins is if we're looking at his line and what his line has been in the past, like during the regular season, even with Chase, his line was in the high 60s and in the low 70s. And now we're getting like a mid to low 50s line on him. Yeah. And I know he's been, like I mentioned, he's under 40 yards in 6 of his last 7 games, but like again, he missed like some deep, like Burrow missed him on some deep plays. And they also went against some tougher pass defenses. And Burrow's also not done well in those games. So if you're anticipating Burrow to have a good game, like I think Higgins is naturally going to be somewhat of a benefactor there. Like Higgins on any given week, man, he can drop 135. We seen him drop 190 last year. Like he is too good of a wide receiver to have that line. I don't care like what the matchup is. Like and it's a very like there's a lot of recency bias in that line because look at all the red there. Look at all the red, but that's also moving his line down.
Yes.
You're still getting the same player that you would have bet at like 68, 69, but like T. Higgins, man, like he runs deep routes. Like he can get that in 2 catches. But like he's probably I think if the Bengals are going to win the game, I genuinely think T. Higgins is at least going to be somewhat involved in the game plan to where they're helping him move downfield. He can do a lot of things in that offense, especially because we know like the Chiefs are probably going to focus on Chase. Like they got burned by him last year. You would
It's
like
tough to focus on him, man. He's such a
it is,
dynamic playmaker, man.
yeah, but
You
you
know he's
throw
going to get
like
his 6 to 7 catches.
right, but you throw a little extra coverage over there, and it's like, dude, one-on-one T. Higgins, he is going to smoke you every single day. Every single day.
Now, T. Higgins, you mentioned it, and because especially the success that Burrow has had against the Chiefs in the past, and you mentioned how important it is for T. Higgins' success to be tied into that, I absolutely love the value that you're getting on the T. Higgins right now. I think that's a deep play away, and for this Chiefs team, it's not like they have an elite defensive unit. I can see T. Higgins having an incredible day against his team.
Yeah.
So for me, I look at T. Higgins' number, and I feel like it's way too low. It's almost disrespectful for a guy of his caliber. Give me the T. Higgins over. That's one of my locks of the week, man. I really love the T. Higgins play this week, so I'm with you there. I know you love T. Higgins, so I'm with you on that one.
I love it,
Let's lock that one in too.
I love it, man. And he also, I mean, last year against the Chiefs, he had what, like 103 yards against them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's a lot of, you mentioned the recency bias, but I think people also forget the matchups too. You're talking about the Ravens twice. You got the Bills in there, like some tough secondaries, some tough units in general. And the Chiefs don't really have that.
Context, baby. Context.
Context matters. Context matters. So we talk about Jamar Chase, and I feel like this number to me, Jamar Chase's number, whether it's 83 or 84, that's a little too on the spot for me. I think he's going to be in that 6-7 catch range. It's more of a stay away play in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think he's still going to get his work. Like he's been targeted extremely heavy. He has that explosive play in him. Like it can happen, but again, like they've been utilizing him less as a deep threat and more as like, let's just get the ball in his hands. Like let him work after the catch. Like in important third down scenarios, we're going to get him the ball. But like, yeah, I mean, look at that. I mean,
you see, he's right around that. It's a stay away spot for me in my opinion.
You'd like to think in a win or go home game, they're just going to try and get their best player the ball a lot. But again, I do agree with you. Like I do not have a strong opinion on that line.
All right. What about Tyler Boyd sitting at 31.5? You like Tyler Boyd at all? I'm not a big Tyler, or 32.5. I'm not a big Tyler Boyd fan.
I love Tyler Boyd as a player. I love him, but it's also like being in an offense with Chase and with Higgins, and Hurst has gotten involved too. And we mentioned P. Ryan as well. Like some players have their games, and I feel like Boyd's has been a little bit more unpredictable in that sense. So I don't know. He's more of a stay away for me. Like if I'm hitting one of the Bengals, it's going to be Higgins, and I'm going to just lean on that factor of it rather than anything else.
All right, let's move on to the Chiefs, man. I all season, just to be real with you, I faded the Chiefs situation. Like I don't trust any receiver to have a good game for the Chiefs, whether it's Juju, MVS, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Justin Watts. I don't care who the receiver is. The tight ends. The only player that I really like, even have kind of a grasp on, is Travis Kelce.
Yeah,
that's the only player that I look at on the Chiefs. Everybody else is a little bit too, they're too volatile for me, right? So when I look at Travis Kelce and I see his receiving yards sitting at 76.5, I think this is a smash spot for Travis Kelce too, especially when you know Mahomes is banged up and those deep throws aren't necessarily going to be there. Who's his guy? This guy on third down, his check down guy, reliable in the red zone. More anytime score than anything. I think Travis Kelce's a lock for an anytime this week, but I also like that yardage total sitting there at 76.5. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're in any somewhat sentiment that you think Mahomes is not going to be banged up, like, and you like Mahomes over or anything like that, just play Travis Kelce instead. Like McCall Hardman's coming back, like those wide receivers. And we saw Kelce last week and what happened when, I mean, even the game plan, the first drive, he got, what was it, like 5 targets in the first drive, scored the touchdown. But then even after that, like when Mahomes needed something, when he was banged up, who was he going to? It was Travis Kelce. So I think that obviously the Bengals are going to focus on that. But if Mahomes is able to like play well and the Chiefs are able to like move the ball in the passing game, dude, it's going through Kelce, man. It's going through Kelce. So I think for me, like, yeah, if you like Mahomes and you like his over, like I would take Kelce instead, to be honest. I think that's the route to do it. Just because there's so much volatility with these other guys, especially with McCall Hardman coming back. Like,
Yeah.
dude, Justin Watson, McCall Hardman, Marcus Scantling, dude, it's gonna be like a Jeopardy. It's gonna be a Jeopardy question next year of like name like the 17 wide receivers that were on the
Yeah.
Chiefs.
I know, 19 pass catchers, whatever it
Yeah,
was.
like everybody's playing. It's like a freaking rotation, man. It's like
Yeah.
oh, like you going for one play, get your water,
And
get your
there's not really any
electrolytes in.
value with their numbers too. Like Kadarius Toney's at 34.5, Juju's at 44.5, MVS is at 27.5. There's just no value, in my
Yeah.
opinion, for these guys on the
If
number.
anything, I would like take unders on this. So that's what I was looking at. I was looking at taking unders on those guys, and for me, it was like I kind of like Kadarius Toney under. I kind of like Marcus Valdez-Scantling over.
I feel
But
like
then I'm just
MVS is the
but
one, bro,
then I'm
especially
just
because he's the deep guy.
yeah, exactly, 100%. And then it's like, especially McCall Hardman coming back, that's going to take away from him. So it's like I was looking at those, and then I was like, well, like if I like both these guys, why am I not just taking Mahomes under? So that's kind of where my thought process was. Like I actually do like both their unders, but I like Mahomes under a little bit more, to where I just rather just do that play. But again, like those, I'm happy to.
I think I would smash
Yeah,
MVS is under.
yeah, he's been under in like I think it's like 4 or 5 of his last games. Like
Yeah, and he's only hit that number barely in one game. To me, like that's his whole game is predicated on the red zone and the deep ball. So while he might get a touchdown, I think he's more likely to get a touchdown than a 30-yard catch this game. And that's really how he makes his money, is those 25, 35-yard catches downfield. I think this is a smash spot for him. If he scored, it wouldn't surprise me. But if he caught one of those deep balls, unless Mahomes is just right, if he's just 100, he's good to go, he's 85, 90% Mahomes, then I can see that play happening. But for me, I'm kind of fading MVS in this spot.
No, I kind of agree with you as well. He's probably my preferred preference over Toney.
Yeah.
And I think that aspect of it as well. I mean, Marcus Valdez-Scantling played, I think it was he played like one of his lowest snap shares last week, 50%. It's his second lowest snap share he's played all year.
Oh wow. And Hardman's coming back?
Yeah, well, Hardman too. Like once Hardman left, he started playing a little bit more, and then like his routes honestly been going down ever since Kadarius Toney. So like Kadarius Toney's snaps are almost like overlapping with his a little bit. We know Toney's like a freaking part-time player. I don't know why, man. Like I don't know if it's an injury concern. I don't know if it's a medical staff. I have no idea why Kadarius Toney is not playing more, because when he's on the field, they're giving him the ball and he's doing well in those opportunities. But it just seems like so likely that Kadarius Toney is like not going to be that full-time guy that we want. And I think Marcus Valdez-Scantling is probably the guy to fade a little bit. So I dig it, man. I dig it.
All right. Well, I built a little 5-leg for us.
Ooh.
So before we get to the 5-leg, who you like this game and why? So you got Cincinnati, KC. Who you rolling with? Give me a score prediction, Dalton.
All right. So I'm going to go 28-17 Chiefs. And here's why. Here's why I'm going heavy on the Chiefs. What have the Bengals had to their advantage over the last 2 years? They have been underdogs in every single scenario. Every single scenario. Everyone's counting them out. 6-point underdogs last week at Buffalo. And then they go ahead. They're 3-0 against the Chiefs. And they're calling this Burrowhead. Do you know what Frank Clark said today in his press conference? Frank Clark said, hey, I can't wait to play at Burrowhead. A Chiefs player openly – dude, it is bulletin board material. The fact that they're like the Chiefs are the ones being disrespected now. The Bengals, for the first time ever with Burrow, it genuinely feels like they are getting respect.
Did you see the mayor of Cincinnati said, hey, we want to get a paternity test on Pat Mahomes to see if Joe Burrow is his dad? How disrespectful can you get? The game 3 days before the game.
They are getting over their skis right now. Like let's get this out of here. Like the NFL selling tickets to the AFC Championship game that is Baltimore material. That was messed up. They gave them a lot to look forward to, and like you could tell that meant a lot to the Chiefs emotionally, just because of Burrow mentioned it in his interview. Jamar Chase was like heading into the locker room. They caught him on camera mentioning that. Like from a narrative perspective, this is legitimately the first time the Bengals have been in this scenario. And the Chiefs have always been the favorites. I mean, the Chiefs have always been that team with Mahomes. And like, especially if Mahomes is like, dude, he's fully practiced. He's not even on injury report, and it's not that bad. Like I mentioned, a fully healthy Mahomes is a 3.5 point spread.
Yeah, at
And
least.
at least, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I think in Arrowhead, man, like I want the Bengals. Don't get me wrong, I want the Bengals to win. I think the Chiefs are going to win, and I think it could be a little bit more surprising than we think.
Oh, I'm in this Bengals hat, and all the numbers, all the suggestions say go with the Cincinnati Bengals, but I can't do it. But I got a little bit more of a nail biter than you got. 27-24,
Okay.
Chiefs get the win. Andy Reid heads to another Super Bowl. I think this Chiefs team gets it done, and they do it on the strength of the run game.
Mm-hmm.
And where this has been a weakness for this team in the past, I think finding Isaiah Pacheco has given them a little bit of a hammer, somebody they can trust in the in the run game, who's a hard worker, right? I
Mm-hmm.
talk about guys like Damian Pierce, who's a try hard in my opinion because he has to work harder to get his yards. He's not as talented as like a Brees Hall. I got a lot of backlash for that. Isaiah Pacheco, he's a little bit faster, but he's kind of that same mold. He doesn't have all the elite traits that you want to see, but he does have the speed. He does have the heart and the drive. I think he can be a good worker for this team, and I think they utilize him in that aspect. You talk about Jerick McKinnon having an increased role as well in production. So for me, I think this team relies heavily on the run game. Give me the Chiefs 27-24 in a nail biter. I hope Mahomes, he probably is going to have the ball last drive. Like just like he always does. If he does, it's a wrap.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All
It's gonna
right, well let's get this parlay out the way, guys. If you do not follow the page, make sure y'all follow the page. Dalton and I have been providing a lot of insight and information this entire show. So if you missed some of it, run it back. We went through both games. We got Christian McCaffrey on the over when it comes to his rushing yards. Brock Purdy under on the passing yards, 215.5. We're going with Pat Mahomes under 274. So what's that mean? We're going to ride with MVS under 275.5. And since everybody and their mama likes Joe Burrow to do their thing, we know that depends on T. Higgins, like my man Dalton pointed out earlier in the show, 54.5 receiving yards. I really like this one, dog.
Yeah, dude. This is the one. This is the one, man.
I drop a nice little 20 spot on this one.
Bang bang. I
Bang,
love it,
bang.
dude.
Niner gang. So yeah, if you missed it, guys, McCaffrey over, Brock Purdy under, MVS under, T. Higgins over, Mahomes under. So that's what we're riding with for this game today. Dalton, any parting thoughts on the championship games this week, man?
Dude, I'm just excited. I genuinely think like we have probably one of the best conference heading into the week. Probably one of the best conference championships that I can remember as a football fan. Both these games are basically just like Vegas is almost putting them at pick'ems for the most part. And I genuinely think like it's four of the best teams in football, right?
I'd say
So
they
I
are the
think,
four best teams.
yeah, they are the four best teams. So it's like, dude, and then also like I think we're in a great position too because I think the Super Bowl, regardless of what the matchups are, like it's going to be a close game. So I think like we're really lucky as football fans just to be able to enjoy like genuinely good games against genuinely good teams, and like whichever team comes out on top and wins the Super Bowl, man, like dude, they're gonna have to earn it because they have to go through some freaking dogs right now. So it's fun, man. I'm excited.
Let me ask you this, Dalton. Let me
Yeah.
ask you this. What do you think is the worst matchup and what do you think is the best matchup? So if you were like, all right, I think the best matchup, like for me, I think the best matchup on like football wise would be Niners versus Chiefs. And I think the worst would be Bengals versus Niners, honestly. Like I think that'd be the worst matchup. What do you think would be the best matchup and the worst matchup? Of course, both might have had Niners in it.
As a football fan, no bias in any of my bets or futures or anything. I think the Eagles being in the Super Bowl is really good for football. And I think because they're extremely complete team, and I think having a guy like Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl, and I'm a big AJ Brown fan, so maybe there's some bias here. But I think them and the Bengals would be really good. I think it'd be a really fun Super Bowl where I mean, a lot of times in Super Bowls, you get fans who are like, I want like last year, like everybody was rooting for the Bengals, right? Because like they're the underdog, they're the fun team, they're up and coming, right? Where I feel like this year you can make a case for like both teams in those scenarios. So I think for me the Bengals, because they have a chance to actually like win. People love Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts coming out here, like kind of being like the underdog mentality with like the Eagles, like the underdog city mentality there. Like kind of coming out of nowhere this year. I think that's a fun one. My worst one would probably be matchup wise, Bengals Niners.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think that might be tough.
You know, it's a rematch of like the old 80s Super
Yeah,
Bowls. It's like, I don't feel like the
yeah,
excitement would be there.
yeah. I want the just so we're clear. I want that to be the Super Bowl, but like I
Niners
don't know. I don't. I,
Bengals.
wouldn't- I, wouldn't- I don't. I don't even think there's like a bad like Super Bowl. I just think like one thing that's interesting is like the defenses there are like you're getting like two really good offenses on the AFC side, and not to say like the Niners, like the strengths of those teams on the AFC are offenses. The strengths of the teams, I mean, to be fair, the Eagles are like both teams are good on
Yeah,
offense.
it's
They're defensive teams, man. So
you can't
um,
miss with this Super Bowl. You're right. Like it's
yeah,
gonna be entertaining either way. You're either gonna get
yeah,
great offense, great defense, great quarterback play, great storyline. Brock Purdy, a rookie in there. Like there's a lot of excitement in this Super Bowl either way. So
like,
I'm with it.
call it now. Who's winning the Super Bowl?
49ers. 49ers, baby. I'm not going no other answer right now. And that's all fan talking. You're not getting no other answer but Niners won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the most unbiased answer ever
Yeah.
on the show. Right here, you heard it.
In the Bengals house. Shout out to my guy Kyrie. He made me wear this Bengals hat. I ain't wearing it no more. Till the Niners are out, until the Bengals are out, I ain't wearing this damn hat no more. Derek said, "Hey Justin and Dalton, thanks for your advice. Appreciate you tapping in with us, and hopefully you get some money with us this week, man." If you guys have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so. Follow my guy Dalton Cates at Dalton_Cates on all social media platforms. Dalton, it's been a pleasure, my man.
Pleasure, man. Bang bang.
Yes, sir. Bang bang Niner gang. We'll see you guys next week. Peace out.
Deuces.